Hey, what's up guys, it's DGC Garage here, back again with another LS teardown video. Today we're going to be making huge progress to take this crank pulley off, timing cover, timing chain oil pump off, and then remove the camshaft. Also going to be, I've already cleaned up the valve covers, I'm going to pull those off, pull off my rocker arms, push rods, and then remove the heads. So it's going to look a whole lot different by the time I'm done with it. So let's jump into her. Alright, so this crank pulley harmonic balancer, whatever you want to call it, it's a 24mm socket, so fits on quite nicely. Now I'm going to be using an impact. Mine's air, just because I left my battery one at home, but you can do it with a socket or a ratchet. You just got to jam up this pulley somehow, whether that's sliding it in through here and resting it on the block. I wouldn't recommend on the head, because they're aluminum and you don't want to damage it. So you can do it that way, but easiest just impact. Should have had that on 4, my bad, but she's off. Now keep this bolt, very important bolt, and they're expensive if you lose it. So tuck it under your pillow and kiss it goodnight, because if you lose it, you are hooped. So now that the bolt's out and there's nothing holding it in, it's just pressure fit. So you're gonna need a puller. You can try and pry it off these with 2 pry bars on either side, but you're gonna risk damaging the crank and possibly the pulley. And then you'll also be using this front cover as a backstop, which you'll probably bend in. So I just avoid it. Go rent a puller, they're free, or go buy one, they're like 40 bucks. Luckily my buddy had one that's gonna work for me. It's made by DP Tool. It's pretty simple, it's very small. The arms hook on underneath here. So you just slide them in and rotate it inside these notches. And then I have a little dowel that goes inside here, fits on the end of the crank, and uses that to pull it out. The hole is in this bolt. So it's pretty straightforward, and yeah, I'll come back when it's all set up. So now that the arm or the pullers are on, it's pretty straightforward how they go on. See these little slots right here, so your arms will go in there and then it twists on and catches on the back like that. So the biggest thing is making sure everything's square, and you can spin this with a wrench, but it's going to be turning over the engine, so just use the same impact you use to take out the crank bolt. There we go. So now that we've done the hard job, that pulley, I'm going to start removing the heads. So like I showed in the previous video, I think it was the first one in the series, how to remove the valve cover. Is really easy. You got 4 8mm bolts on both sides. Now make sure you keep the bolts for these, because they're super weird looking. But so now with the valve covers off, we can start removing the valve train. Now I'll be pulling off the rocker arms and the push rods. Now it's 16 bolts, 2 per cylinder, intake and exhaust, and they are 8mm. So I already cracked this one loose. I'm going the wrong way. I already cracked this one loose. Pull it off. Now if you are reusing the same hardware or valve train and you're not going to be changing anything, which this one doesn't look half bad, I'm still going to change it out just because these have needle bearings in them, and if one go out, it'll grenade your motor, because you got a whole pile of tiny little needles floating around in your oil, and it's just going to grenade the motor. And under boost, I don't really trust them, so it's an easy swap. Just do it, you're already in here, why not? But if you are going to be reusing them and you're just doing a nice refresh, make sure that everything goes back in the same place you took it out, in the same orientation. So this lid or this rocker goes here, not over there, not anything. And same with the push rods, they wear together. So if I put this one in upside down, it's not the same wear pattern as the rocker arm, so you're risking premature wear and then you'll be tearing it all down again. So you might as well just organize everything, make sure that it goes back in the same spot, in the same orientation. I'm going to be changing it, so it don't matter to me, but for people who are just factory refresh, use the same parts, clean everything, make sure everything's working right, make them go back in the same spot. So my push rods, rocker arms are all out, and it's weird to see the wear. We're looking at the engine like this, the left-hand side, so the passenger side is a whole lot cleaner with the push rods than the driver's side, the right-hand side. So I don't know if it's just been sitting weird or it had an oiling issue or maybe the oil pump failed. I don't know, I'm hoping not, because I want to reuse that stock bottom end. But we're gonna find out when we take off the heads. Oh, keep these bolts. You can change them for fancy RP1. I don't see the point. Keep them, they'll work. Just make sure you adjust them right when you're putting it all back together. So with everything off the head, remove this. Now this is made out of aluminum. It's a non-wear item. What is it called? I have no idea. I'm assuming it's like an aligner, maybe. I'm assuming that's what it is. Either way, I wouldn't bother throwing it away because there's no wear. You don't need to replace it, and save yourself the money. Just grab some brake clean or some degreaser, clean her all up and toss her back in there, save you a little bit of money. So when it's time to remove the heads, you have, what is that, 5, 10, 15 bolts on each side. The top row is 10 mil. Pretty sure those are 18. I'll clarify when I'm taking them off, but I'm going to remove these tops first, these 10 mils, because they're the smallest diameter. So if you remove these first, you're putting a whole lot more stress on those tiny little bolts, whereas a little more stress on these big old ones isn't really going to matter. So that's what I would recommend, is take these off, and then you want to work in a circle, basically. So it's the reverse of what you're doing when you're putting it on, to crush your head gasket evenly and seat the heads properly. Is going to do the outside, and then in like a spiral going in, and that's it. Now keep the head bolts, because everybody is like, oh yeah, I'll put on ARP. It's why? Save the money. You can run these head bolts again and again with little to no issues, and they're good for over 1,000 wheel horsepower. So why waste the money? Like I'm all for ARP bolts when you're putting in your clutch and your flywheel, because that's super high vibration, and I would not want to have my trans go up just like that. But it's not worth it. Just save the money, reuse them. So those top bolts are out. All those 10 mils, I put them in a bag just so I don't lose them, as I'm going to do with these head bolts. Now I was wrong. They weren't 18, it's 15. My apologies. But I use an impact. You can use a big old breaker bar to the same effect. Either way, it's going to work. But remember, it's a spiral. Those two, those two, those two, those two, so you're at the middle. I do believe that the middle bolts in this are different than the outside ones, so just try not to get it confused. There's plenty of rebuild videos on YouTube. This is one of them, so if you get a little confused or so I don't remember, you can always refer back to this video, because I'll show you where everything goes. Alright, all of the bolts are loose and ready to come out. Now, I was wrong. I apologize. It's not the middle ones that are different. It's the two inside corner bolts that are different, and you know that they're different because they have markings on the top. So the markings go to the outside, but for an example, it's got threads 7/8 the way up, and regular ones about halfway, and they're a little longer too. But this one's on the outside, so. But you can see that they're different. Make sure they go back in the same spot. I don't think it matters if you swap them up, but try to have everything go back in the same hole, and you shouldn't have an issue. So anyways, I'm just gonna pull out the spark plugs now. I probably should have done that before, but who cares? So I'll steal those out right now. So you want to use a 5/8 spark plug socket. I guess you can use a regular 5/8, but and there's a reason why they make spark plug sockets. So I'm assuming because you're watching a teardown video on an engine, you're either curious about building an engine, but you have some mechanical knowledge. Just make sure that your socket's seated all the way to the spark plug. This doesn't apply just to LS's. This is every motor out there that uses a spark plug. Same goes for glow plug and the diesel. Same goes for every other bolt. You don't want to round them off. So also never drive them in with an impact. Coming out, all right, I guess. But on every one, you can see, you can read them. You can tell if it's burning too rich, too lean. If there's oil on it, if it smells bad. This is a junkyard motor. I don't know how long it's been sitting, so I'm not going to worry about the readings on it until it's back together and running. But do you want to pay attention to the threads? They are aluminum heads, which means it's a finer thread, or it's a finer material, and you can put them in cross-threaded and it'll screw up the whole cylinder head. So because I'm taking them off, I'm going to clean them in a bar salt tank and then change the springs and port them. I can run a tap through them just to be safe and make sure everything's fine, but 1 out of the 8 doesn't look terrible. Like the plug's gross, but the threads on it are pretty mint, so I'm happy about that. So then just repeat the process for all 8. So plugs are out, all of the bolts can come out now. I showed you the orientation, so it should be good on where they go. Again, if you want to change them, you're going to have a 2,000 horsepower twin turbo, twin charge, supercharged, nitrous, meth, whatever you're putting your motor on, and you're going to make crazy power. Absolutely, you're going to want to change the heads to better breathing heads or better flowing heads, and all fancy ARP hardware. For this build, I ain't going to bother with it. I don't have enough money to build an engine like that, and I don't have enough money to run an engine like that. So I'm a small and big block kind of guy. Old school carburetors. This is my first fuel injected Chevy motor I've ever had, but I know on those motors having aluminum heads is a big deal. Like if you do aluminum heads and intake, you're saving like 100 pounds across the board. So these are already aluminum. They're light. They're relatively good flowing with the 862 heads, but little free horsepower with the die grinder. Can't complain, and they're light. So if I were you, I'd just change the springs to compensate for whatever cam you're putting in. Hell, if you're leaving the stock cam, I know you can make around 350 wheel with the turbo on stock internals before getting limited by injectors and fuel. So if you don't want to change them, don't change them. These motors are pretty quick as they are if you put them in a small car, right? So now that all the bolts are out, I can start pulling off the head. I did rotate the engine on the stand so that it's 100% vertical or 90 degrees, so that I don't risk dropping the head on the floor. They're light, it's aluminum, I wouldn't worry about it. But they might be a little stuck on, so you can grab a bolt or an extension, stick them in the exhaust port, and then pry up. But oh no, come on, look at that, we're golden. They do have little locator tabs in the corner, or dowel pins, so you can't really put them in wrong, and they ain't just gonna slide off on you. So I'll film me removing it. Be dipped. She doesn't look half bad. Now, I've never seen the inside of a stock LS, so I'm assuming these piston tops are factory, but I don't see no water in there. There's no rust. I'm a happy camper. The head gasket looks like trash, but there's no splits, so I don't think it was in the junkyard for head gasket. Now I have to take apart the other side, and I could have one rusted out back there. I hope not, but it looks pretty damn good to me. I'm quite happy. Actually, I'm very happy, and there's no ridge whatsoever from wear, which makes me even happier. I can't even catch my fingernail. So I didn't know how many kilometers this engine had, or miles, whatever you want to call it, but it seems a lot lower than I thought. Now I was expecting, I don't know, 300,000 kilometers, which is like 230,000 miles. But I'm very, very happy with this result. So I'm going to pull off the other side. I'm not going to bother filming it because you saw this side is the same, just on the other side. So I'll come back when that side's off. So the driver's side head is now off, and God, I'm one happy camper. It looks phenomenal in there. I got nothing bad to say about it whatsoever. Again, no ridge. No, the head gaskets again, crusty. Gross, absolutely. But it's Canada, so we can't have anything nice here. Trudeau will take it away. Anyways, that's enough of that. Yeah, I actually think I'm going to cut the video here. It's getting a little long. We got a pile done today. I'm very happy. VALVETRAIN off, with the exception of the rollers down there and the trays. I'm going to pull off the head gasket now, but yeah, I don't want to pull off this front cover until I pull off the oil pan, because they're not conjoined. But I don't know. I just think it's best to do everything at once. So in the next video, I will be pulling off the oil pan, the windage tray, the pickup, front cover. I'll pull out the rollers, and then I will yank the camshaft out, start cleaning everything, and buy some parts, because I've been a little poor lately. So yeah, I'm very, very, very happy with this motor right now. I know my voice is pretty monotone, and you probably can't tell, but I'm very excited. Very nice. So you guys and girls have a good weekend. Yeah, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, share. If you got any questions, put them down. I'll try and answer them, or I'll refer you to somebody that can, because I'm a little stupid. But all right, I'll see you in the next one.